over 50 years. 90.1 KPFT and FM HD1.
Pacifica owned and listener supported for over 50 years. This is 90.1 KPFT
For
and
over
FM
50 years.
HD1
90.1 KPFT and FM HD1 Houston.
Pacifica owned and listener supported for over 50 years. This is 90.1 KPFT and FM HD1 Houston.
Listener-sponsored radio. And good evening. Hi, Michael Carson. How are you?
Great. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. Microphone there.
You got it?
Yeah. I'm doing great. You?
Great. Happy to be here.
I'm so like.
You're listening to Living Art on KPFT Houston 90.1 FM, the mighty 9-day HD1 and archived and streamed and hovered on kpft.org any way you like it. When you go to kpft.org, don't forget to go ahead and click on the donate button because we need your support. We here at Listeners Sponsored Radio.
Over 50 years.
And good evening. Hi, Michael Carson. How are you?
Houston.
Pacifica owned and
I'm
listener
good.
supported
Where's your
for over
microphone
50
there?
years. This is 90.
There you go. Yeah.
and FM HD1.
I'm doing great. And you?
Houston.
I'm great. Happy to be here.
I'm
As
so
everyone's-
amazed. You've got to take off for San Antonio after this show.
I do, yeah, but I wanted to swing in for this one tonight.
You
so,
see,
yeah.
lusteners, how much he loves
Commitment
KPFT.
to KPFT.
So tonight we're honored to have a luminary, a guy of some repute, Tod Waters, who is a designer, and with him is Militia Tiamat.
Hi.
How y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
Great. So let's start off with, Militia, why don't you talk about the event at Hardy Nance Studio?
Sure. So the event is this Friday and Saturday. So Friday, 7 to 10 p.m., we'll be at the Hardy and Nance Studios, and we're going to have St. Arnold's is sponsoring, and we'll have beer, sodas, waters. We're also making Frida pie.
Ooh, right.
And Brian and Pixie from Super Happy Funland and Olivia are making the chili. They won 2 trophies from the Oddfellows Lounge for award-winning chili. So we'll have that for everybody to try. So there'll be food and snacks and lots of swag. I want to definitely shout out to Heights Guitar Tech for sponsoring the event. They're helping out with the food and stuff like that, and we'll have swag from them too, and stickers, hats, and goodies for everybody.
Okay, excellent. Very nice.
Right, so that's Friday and Saturday.
Oh yeah, so Saturday is if you want to get some one-on-one time and talk to Todd, maybe get your measurements or get some custom clothes designed or talk to him about his art. You can RSVP to Junker Designs at
Yahoo.
I was going to say junkerdesigns@yahoo.com if you want to schedule sometime on Saturday. It's all day Saturday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
12 to 4, I think.
12 to 4. I was wrong. 12 to 4 p.m. on Saturday.
Okay, so this is in addition to everything else you can RSVP.
Yeah, if you want to just hang out. And
Right.
some people hate crowds, and I can relate to that.
Yeah,
if you want to
definitely.
come in, and we'll do like little 30 or 40-minute blocks, and I'll just kind of walk someone through the...
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
excellent. And so we just email for that if they wanted to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
What was that email one more time? Sorry.
junkerdesigns@yahoo.com.
Okay, junkerdesigns@yahoo.com.
Hardy Nance Studios. That's at 902 Hardy Street, 902 Hardy Street. And, it's kind of a fashion design show, right?
Well, it's kind of a mix. I mean, it's drawings related to the band, and fashion related to the fashion work that I did. It's also paintings. It kind of spans from probably around 2005 to present. So I tried to get drawings, paintings, and clothing in the same show.
Okay. All right. Very nice.
So costumes, creatures, and comics art show.
Yes.
Yeah, we should stress a little bit about what Todd's done with these costumes, right? And so, could you talk a little bit about where your costumes have been out at and seen in the world, for the people who don't know that?
Yeah,
there's
probably
lots of places. Probably,
yeah. Probably the easiest stuff to point to is Steven Tyler, Aerosmith, Motley Crue. I've been working for Motley Crue, I think, almost 10 years, 15 years now, and then I worked for Steven Tyler for about 7 or 8 years, and that's probably the most noticeable stuff out there. But yeah, I mostly worked for a lot of bands, and then I kind of transitioned into film and work in Austin quite a bit, and worked on Alita, Battle Angel, and pretty much almost exclusively Robert Rodriguez stuff.
Huh. Oh, that's amazing. Okay.
Yeah, he was
What's he like in person? I had that.
super mellow. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So I found out he was collecting Junker jackets already.
Okay. All right.
And so eventually it just, I got his email and all that other stuff, and I just basically begged him to work on film.
That's the way it's done.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I read a story that the whole thing started with Lenny Kravitz was wearing your stuff, or is that how he saw something that you were putting together? Or
Yeah. So what happened when I started? I didn't have a sewing machine, and so when I was little, my mom taught me how to sew, basically.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I did kind of know how to sew, but then when I moved to L.A., I think that was like 2001. I ran into someone who was like a famous fashion designer lady, and I was like, hey, man, I really want to make some pants and some vests and stuff. And she's like, okay, well, if you're serious, I'll tell you how you can do it, and you can try to learn on these machines. This is the machine they need to try to learn on. So because she already had a bunch of clients, they just happened to come by when I had a bunch of stuff there, like kind of just piled up that I was working on. And that's pretty much how it started, was Lenny Kravitz. The stylist for Lenny Kravitz was like, oh, man, like, how about these weird Cobra vest-looking things over here?
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
jumped right in.
Yeah.
Did you go out there thinking you were going to design and along those lines? Or
No.
is this a side thing that came along? And
Yeah, I had no idea. Like, my friend John asked me to drive a truck with him. Like, he was moving. And then at the time, like, the band Spunk I was in broke up, and then I was going out with this girl, and that went down, that was flaming garbage, and I was just like, I don't really have any reason to stay in Houston, so I drove the truck out there, and then I thought, well, now I don't really have any reason to go back to Houston either. Like, I'm already way out here.
right,
So I
made it this far, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I ended up getting a job like at a screen printing company, and then I ended up doing some craft service on some, terrible like horror movies and stuff. And,
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Gave you some
Yeah.
ideas, I'm sure, watching
Yeah.
that, though. Okay. And so you were doing music then in the Houston area, right?
Yeah.
We should also talk a little bit about that. And so initially your band in the Houston area was called what? Was your big one?
Spunk,
Spunk,
I think,
right?
was the
Okay.
one people know
And do we
about.
have music to play from? We have some new stuff to play tonight.
Yeah,
okay.
newer stuff,
And so we'll
yeah.
get to that in a little bit. So Spunk was, and how long was that band going for? Or
Probably like 10 years.
10
yeah,
years, okay.
It was a pretty good, like 90s, I think, pretty much.
Lots
Right,
of
yeah.
fireworks and explosions.
Oh, very nice. Okay.
Sometimes the clubs would request to not come back because of the
Okay, yeah, they're like
chaos.
enough.
Yeah.
Very chaos.
But the fans had a good time. Yeah, everyone else had a good time.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. All
I
right.
mean, for me as a teenager, I thought it was the coolest thing I ever saw in my life.
That's awesome. Did it feel like in the 90s when you were performing, was there more freedom to do that kind of stuff, or was it still like...
Oh,
no,
yeah, because
okay.
everything was what was that band, White Snake or White Lion, or that terrible club fire that happened with
Oh,
the
yeah, I
pyros.
remember
So
that. Okay, yeah.
we were touring all over the country at that time and just doing all of our own pyro, and just no one just didn't really say anything to us. Like, we were already so unhinged, and we were like blowing stuff up, and then basically left us alone.
Did you use gunpowder?
Yeah, gunpowder. So we go to buy the blue dot gunpowder, and with PVC pipe we'd make our little flame cannons, and we got rocket igniters, and yeah, it was a good time.
Wow. And so you're doing this from the stage,
Yeah, so we had this guy Pat that was always touring with us, and so with just a bunch of wires going into this crude switchboard that we made with light switches and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Did you
Definitely regulation, everything. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah,
There
totally.
was the one that was supposed to be the final show, and you had a dummy of yourself, and then you blew it up because you said it was the last.
Oh,
Remember
that was a Colonel
Don't-
Slicky thing we did. We had another weird lounge act band
Okay, all right.
that we had. And what we did is because people were really liking the Colonel Slicky thing, is like, I don't want to do this like much more than, 2 or 3 or 4 times. And so what we did is I was dressed up like Colonel Slicky, which is basically a rip-off of that Sleazy P Martini.
Okay.
The Guar guy, like the crappy lounge dude.
Right, yeah, Lounge Lizard, yeah.
Yeah, so, I was dressed up like that, and then I kind of like ducked back behind something, and we had a dummy like rigged with explosives, and it blew up and shot blood like all over the place.
How did the audience react? Were you able to see this, like the audience reaction to this? Or you were
I
there,
was
but
there.
what was it like? Were you
Yeah.
were you in on this or
No.
no? Okay, so was it horrifying? Or
No, it was
you're just
so
beautiful.
cool.
Just
And
cool.
I was like, I hope it's not really the last show for like.
That's
I hope
what
I
you
want to
were
see it
thinking. Yeah,
again.
Gotcha.
Someone got the head. I think it's this girl Maddie. I just remember someone screaming. She's like, "I've got the head! I've got the head!"
That's the reaction. That's fun.
That's what you want,
fun.
right?
And so you wanted to end it though because people loved it. You were just done with it.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I'm like, this is just Sleazy P Martini, and it's it was fun, but not something you want to drag out too long.
Right, gotcha. Okay. And so the 90s. Okay, so you did that 10 years and performing, and then you kind of moved out and got into costume design in LA. Were you doing designs and things like this? Like you said, you have the artwork and the pencil drawings. Anything like that previous? Did you have that background growing up, or?
It's kind of weird. I think my fascination kind of went from building tank models and then into film, like the craft side of film, like all the model building and stuff.
Okay.
And then as I got more aware of like stuff that was built for film, then I was like, well, how do they build the stormtroopers? How do they build Darth Vader? How do they do all this stuff? Like, how does it happen?
Right.
And so the only time I thought about anything seriously as far as costume design went was just like, how am I going to look more like what I want to look like? Like
Right.
Stiff Vader's, with like cool leather pants and
Right.
and all that stuff, and you couldn't find it. There was like North Beach leather, which was, and then there was a lip service, and that was all too shiny. I mean, it was cool, but I was like, I wanted some serious, like, Jim Morrison leather pants,
You couldn't find how to make them yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to make them myself. And then as I got like more clients, because I already had been drawing pretty much my whole life. Like
Okay.
I realized like a lot of these guys don't get much in the way of like those kinds of drawings.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and so I could see that coming with your own performance, like kind of dressing. And it's funny, I never thought, like, I've watched Star Wars, I never thought, like, about the stormtroopers, how they're dressed.
Yeah.
I take it for granted, and like
Right,
have that
right.
mind to kind of see, like, how do you get that feeling, or a show like Walking Dead or anything like that.
Yeah.
Which is really cool that that's there in the background, and a lot of work goes into that. Again,
Yeah, because I was working on Fear of the Walking Dead for like 3 years.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay,
because they
right.
filmed that in Austin.
Okay, all right.
So yeah, that's all we were doing was like shredding costumes
Right.
and putting blood and dirt on stuff, and then we did a whole series of these guys called the Stalkers.
Okay.
Which was like kind of post-apocalyptic. They're wearing like welding masks and they have on these huge cloaks and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was another thing. Like as we discussed it, I could do like a bunch of drawings and show it to the costume designer and be like, "Is this, is this cool?" It was like, "This is what you want," like
Okay, all right.
kind of work that way.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's just a fun way to approach clothing. It's like you're tearing it apart instead of like putting it together. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and a lot of that was like when I first started out in LA is because I couldn't afford to buy like the hide of leather, a full hide. But luckily at the place downtown in LA, I still go there. They sold these bags of scraps.
Okay, all right.
And so that's how like a lot of the junkers like look or whatever came about, because I was looking at those scraps and I was thinking about these 70s leather jackets. I don't know if you guys, maybe someone remembers them. They were every color of leather in the world, like just these weird little patches. And one time in a resale shop, I saw one that was actually like, looked like dragon scales in all different colors. This like 70s jacket. I wish I would have got it, but I was thinking about that. I was like, oh, I can do this. It doesn't matter that the sleeve is going to be like 20 pieces of leather. That shouldn't matter.
Right.
Yeah. So I started doing that, and it was cheap, cheaper.
Gotcha. They're throwing it away, and you're able to piece it together.
Right. They're
Yeah.
selling that by the pound, like
Gotcha.
a pound, a big bag of scraps or whatever.
That makes sense. Do you feel it's like bringing, because you mentioned the 70s a couple of times, was this kind of this this way of this costuming or aesthetic or whatever, was that like big in the 70s, you think, and kind of went away in the 80s and 90s? Or
yeah, because 80s and 90s, you know, it turned into shoulder pads and clean lines and stuff like that. And I felt like the 70s was kind of more flowy and more fun. And also for me, a lot of my memories are like, there's a place called Carousel Skating Rink way down on Bingle when I was growing up. And that was the first time I think I thought about rock and roll and fashion kind of married, because at the time, like, that's when Walk This Way from Aerosmith came out.
Right, yeah.
And so we're all hanging out at the roller rink, and I'm like, man, this music, this like sexy rock and roll actually matches like the way these girls are looking. You know, I was just getting into girls, but they were wearing like corduroys, big old bell bottoms. They had like big hairbrushes in their back pocket. They had their like flannel shirts that were all like tied,
right?
Like
I remember those.
Up
yeah,
like
yeah.
that, and I was just like, oh wow, okay, rock and roll, sexy, fashion, girls. You know, it's just like, and so like the '70s stuff is my favorite, and also you know I grew up on Kiss, so it's just like
right, yeah, okay,
yeah.
It's fun. I never think about it. I mean, it's there all the time, but with rock or with music, the way that what people are wearing ties into the music so much, you know, and kind of like creates the effect, and
right.
It's so important to it, but it's something I never think much about, you know, how that's happening. And like you've actually done, like I was reading of Britney Spears and things like that, or costumes, okay, and so you've done all kinds of costumes. Okay.
So strangely, like after the Lenny Kravitz thing happened, then it was the parade of rock star, pop stars, like the girls, like so it was like Shakira and Christina Aguilera and Pink and some other ones in there, but I barely knew what I was doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it worked. I mean, you jumped into the genius just kind of.
I guess so. I mean, I think it's because you know the way Hollywood seemed to operate, at least, was it was like the new thing, and they were kind of those girls were already in this phase, like the dirty phase. Like if you go back, there's a Christina Aguilera video called "Dirty."
Okay. Yeah.
The girl who
remember.
Yeah. So the girl who taught me how to do my stuff was the one who did all this stuff for Christina.
Oh, all right. Okay.
And so after she kind of got sick of that, then I ended up working for a bunch of those girls, and then kind of moved down the road. She was working for Steven Tyler for a while until they didn't work together anymore, and then I started doing that.
Gotcha. Kind of filled in for them. Did they? Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, do these, like someone like Steven Tyler, are they just like, I want to change designers, I want to change things up, and they kind of look around, or do they kind of do they feel they need to change their kind of look, or is that kind of comes from somewhere else?
Well, it kind of, I think it depends on the artist. So there's the evil middle people in the music business seem to be you know, the rock and roll managers, and then there's the stylists. So you know, some pop stars may have 1, 2, 7, 15 stylists. There's people like, you know, working on looks, working on ideas, like showing them tons of stuff. And so with Steven Tyler, I was really, and with Motley Crue, I was lucky that, you know, a stylist was like, oh yeah, this guy's making really rock and roll stuff anyway. And so this should be pretty easy. And luckily in both of those cases, the stylist kind of just got, you know, pushed to the side.
Okay, so you got to work with them directly almost on those,
Yeah, and I think, or I'm just guessing, like, they knew I knew about music, and also I was like a fan of these bands. You know, I remember my friend Greg Winters brought that Shout at the Devil record to gym class, like when we were in high school, and I was just like, oh man, Kiss is done for, like, this is the new stuff, like, this is killer.
Right,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
they gotta love that too, to have someone that knows their music and what they want.
That can talk about, like, hey man, like, you know, you were kind of doing this then, and then like in the 80s you kind of did this, so I think we should try to do, you know, and I'm just there to give them ideas. Like, I don't care if you know, I want them to like the ideas, but I don't. My job is to try to give them like a buffet and let them, you know, pick out the stuff that they like, and you know.
Okay, they're feeling charged and they get it. Yeah, but they're choosing it. That's
awesome. I mean, you know, Nikki Sixx. Well, I mean, all those guys, Steven Tyler, Nikki Sixx, and Vince Neil have definite ideas about what they want, and then you just think, like, how long those guys have been on stage moving and doing this, And it's like, of course they know what they want.
Right.
If they don't know what they want by now, there would be like a really big problem.
Right? After 20, 30 years, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
if you're like, I don't really know what I want to wear, you'll be like, whoa, okay.
That's great. That's fantastic. And so sometimes they would actually, they direct you, would they like say, I want this from you? Or is it more just like they pick the different things that you give them all the time? Were there any moments where like, can you do this for me?
Well, I think, so Nikki Sixx, I remember, saw a jacket that I already did in black and wanted it in white, like this crazy patchwork jacket. And he wore that thing, forever. Mm-hmm. And it was like, him like just seeing something be like, let's do it in white, because they were doing the Saints of Los Angeles record and everything was like white, as far as like their promo stuff, white costumes.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then Vince, specifically, I remember they did this residency at Las Vegas, and he's just like, hey man, Liberace, but rock and roll, and I was like, oh God, that's my Lord,
the lounge days you had to pull from for something,
right? I was like, oh, wow, okay. So I mean, we made crazy feather costumes, we made stuff that was all like glittery and shiny and foiled and really reflective. We had like lit belt buckles. Okay. One that was like an ace of spades, like spread out like this, and we had 21 LEDs around it. Okay. And it was like sandwiched in between some plexi.
Very nice. Okay. Yeah, I can see this. Yeah.
So Vince will talk in a broad term, but he definitely knows what he wants.
Okay. All right. Awesome. And so at this, at the Hardy and Ant Studios, will we see some of those designs there, or like your sketches of those? Or?
We're gonna see a kimono that I made for Vince.
Okay.
So the thing I started doing, because I haven't kept archives of any of my stuff for the 22 years or whatever, is what I'm starting to do with those guys in Motley Crue is I'm making like 2 of everything. They're slightly different, and then they take the one that they want, and then I have them sign the other one and put it in my archive.
Oh, that's smart. Okay.
So you're gonna see the ugly cousin kimono that didn't get picked for the tour.
Right. Not just quite there, not perfect. Not
yeah, I mean, and see, this is another thing, like you don't even, I don't know if he realized it either, but he ended up picking this other kimono that was like black on black, and I had screen printed all these Japanese wave patterns. It's a really repetitive, just like a series of like humps.
Right, like the famous painting of the wave, that thing?
Not the one that's semi-realistic, but there's one that's literally, it just looks like a bunch of little humps, and then there's the humps, another row and another row. So it was, if you picture like a flat black fabric, and then all those humps were printed in this reflective foil kind of ink, and then you put this foil on it, and it's kind of a heat transfer. But anyway, it's super reflective, and when it was on stage, it was perfect. Like he picked it. I don't know why he picked that one, but when you see it on stage, it looks like he's wet.
Wow. Okay.
Because of the way the light is hitting it. It was like definitely the best choice there, So I think instinctively, like I said, like he's been doing it forever. He was just like, I like that one.
That's how he says it.
Yeah. Well,
that enthusiasm. Yeah.
He's super mellow, and so now with Nikki, I'm going to fly out to L.A., and he's got some ideas for some jackets. But I think we're trying to push some new territory, and we have to figure out what it is, So, I mean, that's super cool. I'm really stoked about that. I think I meet with him on the 6th of April, I believe.
Okay, that's awesome. And so it's just like kind of this negotiation, conversation, experimentation as you're going through it.
Yeah, because also if you think about people have those careers and that go on for that long, and if they are self-aware, and Nikki's very self-aware, he's just like, we got to find something, It can't be this, it can't be that, it shouldn't be too much of this, but we got to like find out how we're pushing this, where it's kind of, obviously has to represent him and the band and all that, but he doesn't want to go backwards at all, which is good.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Yeah, thinking forward and something for you to kind of like create with as well.
Yeah, because it's a challenge, and actually I'm going to frame this thing for him. But there's an Alan Moore quote. So Alan Moore is the guy who wrote The Watchmen. He's a really crazy, he's an Englishman, and he's a wizard.
I didn't know he's a wizard.
Yeah, you can look on YouTube. He talks about a bunch of this wizard stuff and astral projection. But anyway, there's a quote from him that it's like, look, if the art project or your newest writing or whatever you're doing, and I'm paraphrasing, doesn't scare you to death, and you don't think that this could possibly ruin everything that you're doing, then it's not worth doing it.
Love that.
And so, like, I've had to take a really hard look at some stuff that I've been doing. I'm like, I just kind of like took one easy step down the same path again. Like, how?
Right.
You know.
Yeah, that's a hard way to look at art. But I mean, I feel like art that actually moves and is exciting and appeals to people has to go to scary new places each time. You can't like repeat.
Yeah, there's that expression that when you're in it and you're sweating through it, you know, when the expression is like, you're out in the weeds, man.
Right.
And I've been there, and it's no fun.
Very weedy.
It's very frightening.
Yeah.
But when you get through it, you're just like, oh man. So, you know, a lot of people talk about the and you know, it always sounds a little pretentious, you know, like the artistic process. For some people, it seems to be really natural and super easy, and there's a lot of guys I know that are just really great, and I don't know if they struggle, you know.
Right. Maybe they just hide it differently. They struggle.
Yeah. For me, some of it is easy. Some of it is the kind of struggle where you're like, I'm going to burn all my stuff in a pile in the backyard, and I'm going to walk away down the freeway, you know?
Yeah. A couple of times a year been there. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, so I assume when Alan Moore is talking about, you know, he's talking about that feeling where you're like, I'll hang myself off a tree.
Right.
Like if I can't do this anymore. And then, you know, you kind of like, oh, hey, man, look at this thing on the floor. Like, oh, this is cool. Let's put this here. And then you just kind of...
Right.
Something happens, you know.
It's scary just to open yourself up to that space, but that's how I think the art comes, like getting to this kind of... Yeah, you're to the very edge of things where it could all be disaster. And,
right.
But otherwise you don't get this kind of stuff that you've created. I don't know. I feel that seems to be what art comes from sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's another really cool... series of quotes or some stuff that I heard Terrence McKenna talk about. He's like into psychedelics and all this kind of stuff.
Okay.
But anyway, the theory that he kind of puts forth that I'm like, wow, you know, that does make sense. He's like, your brain is a giant antenna. Mm-hmm. He's like, we don't produce, or his theory is like, we kind of don't really produce a bunch of these ideas. He says this stuff's flying in from somewhere else.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, it seems like the best explanation for that intuition that gets you out of the weeds, or that weird inspiration where you're like, whoa, in the middle of the night, and you have to like walk outside and get into the shop and do something. Mm-hmm. It's like, where did that come from? It's like, it's not an idea I've ever had. It's not based on, and also it's not based on another idea that I thought that I've ever had. It seems to come from somewhere like, you know,
right, somewhere
beyond
unconscious or something,
right.
Beyond us, yeah.
Right.
You have to keep yourself open to that, pay attention, and to like be receptive, like an antenna.
Yeah.
That's hard. I think a lot of people shut down. Yeah, when they become artists or they type these things, but you have to kind of leave that space for it to come, and you have to put yourself in the weeds sometimes, and sometimes it'll only hit you there.
Right.
So.
And the one other weird discipline that I feel like kind of helps that, at least for me, is like, I don't want to look at a bunch of rock and roll pants like throughout history. Like, I don't study stuff, you know. Mm-hmm. I don't. All the comic books and all the stuff that I looked at was like kind of into the 70s and a little bit of the 80s, and then I was like, I should probably stop doing this, you know, like looking at stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So now, like on Instagram or whatever, you can look at kind of stuff and be like, oh, cool, but I want to make sure I'm not studying something, because you don't want to subconsciously then be like, produce something and someone's like, that's just, you know, especially with music too.
Right.
That's Pink Floyd, dummy, you know, like, well, everyone knows that riff. Yeah.
That's funny, and so it's like you have a certain amount where you look at the stuff in the past, and you grew up with a lot of this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But then you have to back away and just kind of let it happen too. Like, because if you're looking at it over and over again, maybe that's the problem. Like Instagram, they're seeing it all the time. You can't kind of have that space in the same way to create something new.
Yeah, and like with music too, it's like you hear a lot of bands and you could be like, I bet you guys listen to a lot of AC/DC. Mm-hmm. And then they do. They listen to a lot of AC/DC.
Right, yeah.
So like I play in like these kind of gnarly, or try to be gnarly, punk bands or whatever, but I pretty much listen to like Rush and Kiss and Cheap Trick and stuff at home, a lot of Frank Zappa and stuff too.
Okay.
I don't feel like it's going to do me any good to listen to like Exploited records and Fang records all the time and then play in a punk band, because they already did that. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah. And
But
it's repeating.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. I love this. I mean, we'll circle back because I want to talk more about the music, but I want to emphasize again, Hardy and Nance Studios. This is March 31st and April 1st. So that's Friday and Saturday night, and it's the Art of Tod Waters. And we have all sorts of things. We have the costumes and comics. And when you say comics, do you write some comics yourself, or is this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been working on some comics, and the reason I use the word comics is because a lot of the drawings that you'll see are characters from the comic, that I decided to turn into like a bigger piece of artwork instead of just showing the comic book pages, which I thought was like, since it's not done, in theory, like I didn't really want to put the pages out there like to an incomplete story.
Okay. And then when you create the characters, and you get inspiration for the costumes from these characters that you put out on the shows and the music, does it connect that way, or is this kind of separate?
This is kind of separate because it's so weird. Like, this is like the passion project, like the comic that I want to make into a movie.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
Kind of a thing, yeah.
What's your comic called? You've been working on? You're willing
It's
to
called,
share that?
well, yeah, okay, so in, I think 92, I came up with this thing called Zipperneck Kids.
Zipperneck Kids, okay.
Yeah, and that happened because I think me and Peter, one of the guys in the bands, we were out somewhere, and there was a guy, probably schizophrenic or something.
Right.
But he was talking about like, man, these these electric soldiers and the Frankenstein complex, and he was going on about all this stuff, and I listened to it for a half of a second, and I was like, oh, this totally makes sense. So I thought about it kind of in some stuff that had happened to me, like, I'd had my legs reconstructed, and I'd been in accidents, and I've been, like, probed by doctors, and you do start to feel like a bit of a Frankenstein, but I was like, wow, but what if I was, running on electricity, like Frankenstein as well?
Okay.
And then I was like, well, like Star Wars, so it kind of turned into a sci-fi thing.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be called Zipperneck Kids Planet Gamma, I think is the rough working title right now.
All right, sounds brilliant. I love this.
Well,
I can't wait to see it.
It sounds like something. I don't know if it's brilliant.
That's where
or
it
not.
starts. You have to have that, the courage to go there. And so the Friday, Saturday night, and then they can show up at 7 to 10, and then 4 to 10 to see, a lot of artwork, a lot of costumes, designs, and also if you want to have conversations about costumes, they can come a little bit earlier on Saturday. Is that correct?
They can RSVP, and then it's from 12 to 4. Like, I'll be more than happy to walk somebody around, especially if they're the type of person that doesn't want to deal with crowds. Like, it'd be really cool to give them, like, a private tour.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Yeah, this is huge for Houston area, local Houston native coming back, right? And you're coming back also with some music too. You're thinking of you're getting involved recently. Do we have some music to play? Is that right? Okay. You want to throw a song out there? We can listen to it, and you want to introduce it at all? The song?
Yeah, this song's called Handsome, and I used to call my dog Handsome Bill, but it's a part of a three song kind of a trilogy of songs about. Basically a kid who sees a witch and realizes the witches only ride wolves, and so he wants to somehow become a wolf.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I didn't know that either. Is that true about witches and wolves?
It is now. It's another it's another story I've been working on.
All right, I love that. And I guess as he's looking for the song, like how has your music changed since the 90s, do you feel? Or are you still kind of doing the same thing? Or do you feel like you moved in different directions?
Oh, I want to move in different directions. I hope that I will. Like, so right now I'm trying to put a band together, but I want to have keyboards and stuff just to add more sound to the sound, and 2 guitar players and drummer and the basic rock band. But I got to find a way to push it. The best way to describe it is if Frank Zappa and Rush played in a hardcore band.
Sounds like an amazing experience. Right. Put those two together. Yeah, it's funny thinking Rush doing that in the hardcore Rush. And so,
Dude, if you listen to some of their music, it's incredibly fast.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, you ready, Michael?
I'm ready.
Oh, I love this song.
Okay, and this one's called, one more time?
Handsome.
Handsome Bill. Based on a trilogy. Is this the first of the trilogy, or is this the...
I think this ends up being the first, and then there's another one called Fist That Fights. And
Okay.
then the other one's called Nothing Wrong is the last one.
Okay. Are they connected to your dog, the first, like the other ones, or just this one?
No, they're mostly connected to the story about that kid. You know?
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, he wants to transform himself.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
The idea of transformation.
Yeah, he runs into some not credible characters that promise him a transformation that they can't really pull off.
Okay, one of those fake quests, you're you're the wrong choices. You have to go through that. Okay, here we go. And That's amazing.
Oh, yeah?
And so when was this song made? Like, when did you make this song?
God, this is like from 2006.
Okay, 2006.
Yeah.
And then, so you're singing there, right? Are you?
Yeah, yeah, I sing.
Okay, and then do you have other members of the band, or is it?
Right now, we're trying out people, but there's some guys that say they want to be in the band, but you know how it goes. We got to really practice some more. Like
Right.
Die Fast was together, and then like we got COVIDed, and then it kind of like really splintered.
It happened to a lot of people, yeah.
So now we got to. What's you know how it is. Everyone has to be deeply invested.
Right.
Or I cannot do it. I can't. Time is too valuable. So you have to find people who are willing to be deeply invested, like obsessive.
Right. Yeah, it could be tough. And so, yeah, because I wanted to hear that live somehow, like to experience that. Yeah,
that's a fun one. We were playing that last week, 2 weeks ago, maybe.
Okay, all right,
yeah.
Very cool. All right, that's awesome. So that's part of a trilogy of songs, and the band is Die Fast, right?
Right.
Okay. And then how did the name come up for that one?
Yeah, I don't know. I think live fast, die young. I was like, why don't you just die faster?
Right, would speed up the process, collapse the two.
Yeah, it's not super original. There's there's a handful of bands already called Die Fast, but it was kind of like that frustration of dealing with, being in Hollywood, and there was like this period of time where it was all, I don't know, it was like on T-shirts and hats. It was like this, like kind of, party like a rock star, like this mentality, and I was just like, you don't want to die on your vomit in a hotel room. I mean, it's
you're
kind
not
of
real
like,
rock stars.
Yeah, I was
real
thinking
musicians.
like this kind of elementary and naive view of what happens to these people that go off on kind of the wrong direction, and just to make it into a hat, like it rubbed me like the wrong way.
Yeah, I think like Joplin and Morrison, like all that, like to turn it into something to be sold, and
right,
and like people having a few drinks or something, and like not thinking along those lines. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I could see that reaction. I mean, you were in LA, so you were in LA for 16 years or so?
Yeah, 15 or 16.
15 years. Do you enjoy your time there generally, or you're ready to get back to Texas, or what do you think?
I think it's almost like it was a whole other life over there.
Gotcha.
But yeah, like you can't take, I don't know, man. I'm a Texan, so I always like, man, one day, and then I got back over here, and then I started hanging around Houston a little bit more, and I was like, man, I really miss it.
Okay, yeah, because we think a lot about like KPFT. I mean, we're up and running again finally, and like the Houston art community as a thing. Like, what is it? And so it's interesting to hear, people who've been other places and coming back to it. Does it what does Houston feel like to you when you were here in the '90s? Has it shifted, or in terms of the art scene?
I mean, definitely, it's like a, yeah, it's turned into a shiny box, like everywhere is
right,
just
sounds like a lot of places.
Brand new, like, so of course, like anyone who talks about anything is going to be like, when I was younger,
It's real back then. Yeah.
But it was more like the Wild West. We were talking about it earlier. Like when you would go down on Lower Westheimer when we were hanging out down there in the late 80s, early 90s, it was the Wild West, man.
Mm-hmm.
It was nuts, We were going to cool gay bars and seeing all kinds of different types of performances. And when we started getting into our rock stuff, there was this really cool guy named Leather by Boots. His name was Boots.
Okay, all right.
So he was the guy that was doing all the I don't know, Leather Daddy and Bear stuff for all the gay dudes. Or whatever.
Nice. Okay, all right.
Yeah, but this is like the story that just makes everything. I mean, it's one of the best memories. So anyway, he didn't. We were in there like trying to figure out how we're gonna get pierced. Like what do you guys do? You guys do piercing in here, and also we want to get some. We want to get some leather suspenders and stuff.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
That dude was like just super cool. He's like, hey, talk to this dude, and he's like, a leather vest costs this much, and then, chaps are this much, and we were just trying to buy all this stuff, and they're like, oh, we want jackets, and he's like, jackets are this much, like we couldn't afford it, and so that guy, he's like, okay, look, I only do this for some people, and so there was a back room that was basically the collections of all of his friends that died of AIDS.
Oh, wow, okay.
And he was like, you guys can buy from here if you like.
Yeah, that's intense. Yeah, and then opening that up to some young kids coming up in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I miss that, dude. My prized possession is actually at a resale shop. I found a Leather by Boots vest.
Okay, all
and
right.
It says Houston Renegade on the back and embroidery, and it's got like this guy riding a freaking horse or whatever. But I'm just like, man, like if anyone out there has Leather by Boots stuff, like let me know. Like I'm trying to collect it. I want that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that. Queer Voices is on after this show.
Oh, really?
And that would be in the same family, right? And I don't know much about Leather by Boots. Where was it?
I would go in there too. It's in the Montrose.
Now it's called Eagle Leather.
Yeah. There was no other place like in the late 80s, early 90s to buy leather except for maybe North Beach and the Galleria, which that was just ridiculous.
It was like garbage.
So
right.
So you just go in there and look at all the stuff you can't afford and be like, oh.
Where was it then? On
Fairview.
Fairview, right?
Yeah, so Fairview and
like Commonwealth
and Montrose, and you kind of are going
Montrose, all right.
Yeah, it's down in the Montrose. So back then there was only a couple choices. There was like a Red Wing boot store. It used to be on Westheimer on the corner.
Yeah.
And then back over there, we found Leather by Boots, like where the real party was going on. And so, like I was saying, like, those are really important memories, because that showed me that, for one, like when we were all hanging out down there, it was a collection of weirdos and freaks against everyone else, you know, that kind of feeling. Mm-hmm. Not like we were having a battle with anyone else, but that means all the drag queens and the gay dudes and the punks and the cross-dressers and the prostitutes that used to be all out. We were all buddies, man, because we were all coming down there to get away from the rest of the stuff, which was still a lot of kickers and that kind of BS going on. So it was, it was, I get kind of emotional.
Yeah, pre-developer days, right? And now it's all like a shiny box, as you say.
Yeah, now it's got a bow on it. And it's not nice.
Did you go to the Westheimer Street Festival?
Oh, yeah.
Your band played there, too.
That's when I got arrested.
And so then
tell this story.
You'd have the punk rockers, you'd have the gay people, you'd have the local business owners, and you'd have the Hare Krishnas with free vegetarian.
Oh, that's right.
Dancing,
That's right.
maybe dancing and stuff. So,
Wow.
And your band played there, and everybody's band played there.
Yeah.
Know? Yeah.
It's like a weird space where you have the different groups from all come together and be able to interact and helping each other out, which is pretty amazing.
That's a super weird, like, I don't know if paradox is quite the right word, but, you know, everyone's like, Texas, man, everyone there must be like hateful and racist and dumb, and you're like, you have no idea what Houston is like.
Right.
Houston, man, I mean, talk about multi-everything.
Right, yeah.
I'm like, you just have no idea.
I think it was because of the bust, too, right? In the early 80s, property was like 10 cents on the dollar, right? And artists were buying warehouses and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think we got spoiled, right? Like before the 70s, I don't know, but I think the 70s and the 80s with the depression of, you know, property and stuff made it real.
Yeah.
And now if you go around anywhere in Houston inside the loop, you know, it's all shiny, you know, like you say.
Yeah.
But there's something, I don't know, for us, right, for people of low income who are just sort of making their way through life, and, you know, rent is $600 a month or something like that.
Yeah, because I remember when we were playing in Blind Ignorance, Perry or Mark Flood, there's a band, Cultureside.
Okay.
And we went over to their house.
Yeah, Mark Flood.
Yeah, he was like, I rent this whole house. It was like huge, upstairs, downstairs, just massive. And we were like, what? It was like, back then, he was renting this giant house. It was probably like $500 a month or something.
Can I ask why you got arrested at the
inciting a
Westheimer
riot.
Festival.
Inciting a riot, so everybody started moshing
A good riot, though.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happened.
Okay, what's the story?
Yeah, so what happened is because by that time I was living over behind Numbers, and we would see, like, it was, you know, prostitute heaven back over there, right?
Yeah, because they had brown sugars, which sold 3.2 beer, so you could drink it after 2 o'clock in the morning on Sundays.
Yeah,
And there was Booby Rock, which was on Westheimer and Waugh, and that was topless. There's like 3 topless joints, as well as like all the gay bars. It was pretty big, kind of New Orleans kind of, you know, urban street scene. Really was.
Yeah,
and lots of great jazz bars and Americana bars and blues. Yeah, folk.
Sorry, I missed all this. This sounds amazing.
No, it was killer. So I think this was in maybe '92 when I got arrested, and it was and so that the reason I was bringing up all the prostitution and everything there is that at the time there was quite a news story about what the police officers were doing with the prostitutes. And so when we were playing our show, there's a song that I wrote called "Is You Is," which was kind of based on that "Is You Is" or "Is You Ain't My Baby." It was like kind of like a jail, you know, jail song, and you know what can possibly go wrong in jail song. And so I did.
Right.
I
I can't
dedicated.
imagine. Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
I'm
Yeah.
just trying to.
We
I
can
don't
let them imagine. Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know what
yeah.
I can say on the radio, but so anyway, I dedicated it to the Houston Police Department because it's like, you guys know what it's like to be prostitutes because that's what you're doing instead of helping people out who are getting like stabbed and beat up because you're busy doing your other stuff.
Okay.
And so we started playing, and then they tried to arrest me, and then people started throwing bottles and everything.
They try to arrest you while you're playing.
Well, I
this
did
song?
get arrested, but see, the problem was, and also my dad was there at the time, is they're like, they couldn't figure out what to arrest me for. Basically, it was
Right,
like,
that's like
you
free speech,
can't
yeah.
talk like this loudly about the stuff that we did or maybe didn't do. And they were like, oh, public intoxication. Like, I'm sober, so like that didn't work. I haven't had a drink since I hadn't seriously drank since '87.
Oh wow.
So that was like not gonna stick. And then they're like, well, he's on other stuff, and I'm like, look, I don't drink and I don't do other stuff. So basically, so I'd cut myself with glass, so I was like, had blood and stuff all over me, and basically they just took me down and humiliated me, a light humiliation, and then they had to release me because there was no proof of anything they were saying.
Well, you remember and there's some hardcore punk bands with anti-police names like The Badge Means You Suck and things like that, right?
Right.
So that's in the 80s. I'm surprised that they were so sensitive.
Yeah, it must have been that news story that just come out, or is that?
Yeah, it was hot on the news, and I think also the fact that I was doing it in front of a bunch of people, and it was outdoors, and so it was just for if there was like a bunch of conservative types like on beyond the crowd, you can just imagine like kids and stuff, and I mean, like, what were y'all sucking? And it was a bit of a thing.
Right.
So you got kind of vulgar about them.
Well, yeah, I can't even, yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. But you should be able to say that on the stage, right? It's a performance and getting out there. And so they reacted. They came in from the side and they said they went with inciting a riot. That's what they were saying. Attempting that. Okay.
Yeah, they went with inciting a riot, which was no one was rioting until they tried to drag me away.
It's usually how it happens.
Yeah, I didn't say riot. I just was asking, why are the police so busy
It's an honest question.
that kind of stuff?
And that was at the Westheimer Art Festival
Yeah, it was.
back in the day? All right.
Yeah.
This is 92.
There's
Wow.
video that disappeared that we had of that. I wish yeah.
Okay. That's amazing. In terms of like sitting there, like this whole different version of Houston, I came late to the area, but even to this day, though, I feel this has like this city has this kind of vibe where people do help each other out within the city, and like you're describing, like this kind of groups coming together from different places. It's a kind of interesting place, but nothing like it sounds like back in the day in the 90s and the late 80s.
The thing that's interesting about that is Southern manners like have existed. I think it could be like a outdated kind of weird theory, but like there's the difference between LA and the thing that really got me burnt out on Los Angeles was there's just no manners. Like when I came back, when I figured out that how I was really lacking, I was like busy in my head, running to HEB up in Temple to do something, and I realized I walked in and the door like went, "Ma!" and like smacked this lady behind me because I didn't even realize she was there. I had no awareness of like the people around me, and I was like, "Oh man, like you really lost something,
That's my
buddy."
Texas self.
Yeah, so like manners. Like I like to be called honey when I go and buy stuff at the grocery store. I don't mind that. I don't mind being called sugar. I don't mind people being nice.
Right.
People holding the doors open for each other, and it seemed like it's kind of like that base Southern manners, being aware of other people that makes people who are maybe having a hard time, no matter what group they are, like some other people will come and be like, "Hey, buddy, what's happening? You need some help? Like, what's going on? You need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that. I mean, I'm not from here originally, and like coming down, like people see each other differently, and that's that space. It's manners, it's being polite, but it's also this kind of openness that I didn't expect coming from up in the north area,
Right.
like New York, Maryland.
And I think what you said is the exact perfect thing is seeing. Because when you're in LA, like if you say hi to people, they're like,
Right.
they look down. It's like they don't know. Like I don't know what their hang up is, but they don't have anything to say. You know, they don't want to do that. You know, they don't talk in line at the grocery store. Unheard of.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And I'm getting over here and like, well, you know, everyone's just
Yeah,
doing their thing and conversing and seeing each other.
right.
You know.
It's nice to have that. Yeah, nice to have you back in this. I know we're almost out of time, and so thinking about, do we want to do another song? Do we have one more? Okay, I know that we wanted to. But just a reminder, we have Hardy and Nance Studios. That's at 902 Hardy Street, Houston, Texas, obviously. And then we have the Art of Tod Waters. That's Friday and Saturday night, 7 to 10 both nights. And so lots of costumes, comics, kind of sketches, and chance to talk with Tod Waters about like all these amazing different histories that you've lived.
I think on Saturday it's more starts earlier.
Saturday
excuse
is
me, yeah.
if you want to come from 12 to 4 and get like a private tour, you can send me an email. That's at junkerdesigns@yahoo, and I'll walk you through the place and give you a one-on-one.
And then after that it's still till 10.
And then 7 to 10 is
Got
the
it,
normal, I think.
Yeah, it says Friday, March 31st, 7 to 10, and then Saturday, 4 p.m.
4.
till 10.
That's right. I don't even know what time.
Just
Just
be
show
there,
up.
just come there. Friday and Saturday, it's all day, especially Saturday. And it's exciting to have you back and to have this music back too. And so want to celebrate, I guess, Die Hard. So we want to think about what we want to play next. What's going to be our next song?
So Die Fast, this plastic.
Plastic Kids Shelf, about our disposable culture and our quest for nothingness.
Plastic people, I love it. Okay, yeah.
Let's try to get this done.
It's very zen.
Okay, so that's Tod Waters with Die Fast, and he's back in town March 31st, April 1st, Hardy and Nance Studios to come see some of his art. And we have a shout out we wanted to give here.
Yeah, I wanted to give a shout out to Steve Boyak and Ed Loca from Heights Guitar Tech, and that's heightsguitartech.com, and they always support so many artists here in Houston, and they're really supporting us. And Brian and Olivia from Super Happy Funland, they're going to be making the chili for us. We're going to do
That's
Frito
right, yeah.
pie on Friday night, and we'll
Okay.
have sodas, St. Arnold's beer. Shout out to St. Arnold's for sponsoring as well, and a lot of people who came together to make this happen. It's gonna be really fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds like it. Yeah.
And
I
you're
want-
coming? Are you coming?
I'm going to be in San Antonio, Friday night. But actually, I'm driving in that night, so maybe I'll try showing up last second.
Yeah,
So you can do
Saturday.
that. Yeah,
Come on
yeah.
Saturday.
That's right.
Also, I
come
want to
Saturday.
mention, got a big thanks out to Claire from Hardy and Nance, and also she wants me to make sure everyone knows that that's artist owned and operated. So these are artists that really busted, their buns and have this big cool place. For
That
other
was the
people to
community
hang
I
out.
was talking about, where the artists were finding spots, and
Yeah.
they're still there.
Yeah, they're still there. That's what
Yep.
the show's all about, like making sure people see that. Yeah. So yeah, come out, Hardy and Nance, and thanks for coming out tonight.
Oh
both of
man,
you.
thank
Yeah.
you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
The Really appreciate having you on, and wonderful to think about different kinds of art out there. As always, this is Living Art.
This is 90.1 KPFT FM and FM HD1 Houston, a Pacifica radio station.